What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Success Playbook Live. I am your host, Corey Hastings. We'll be coming to you live on Tuesday nights from 7 to 8 p.m. directly on this channel. If you are new here tonight, go ahead and click that subscribe button, and thank you so much for being here. Tonight is episode 5, and if you've been following along, you already know what this live stream is all about. It's built around real conversations, real business decisions, and real lessons that came from both my successes, but also the mistakes I've made along my journey. Tonight is going to be 60 minutes filled with practical insight and real experience with live Q&A from each and every one of you inside the chat. So please go ahead and load those questions. We're going to try to get to as many as we possibly can over the next 60 minutes. If you're getting real value from these conversations, please make sure that you like the stream, subscribe to the channel, and just stay locked in with us. For those of you joining for the first time, I appreciate you joining us tonight. Like I said, my name is Corey Hastings. I am a real estate broker and owner of Christie's International Real Estate here located in Northeast Florida. And over the last several years, I've built this luxury real estate brokerage and led our brokerage into what we are today. And this platform is just an extension of that, focusing on helping others build from their successes, but also my mistakes. Whether it's a business-related question, real estate, personal growth, mindset, career, whatever it could be, I want to help you any way that I possibly can, and I want to try to make you as successful as possible the fastest. So I can't wait to hear your questions tonight. So let's go ahead and get started, and I want to start as we always do. Please, where are you tuning in from? Where are you watching? What city? Drop it in the chat so we can get there. I am coming to you live from Jacksonville, Florida, here at my office here at Christie's International Real Estate. And this is the first time that we've been back in 2 weeks. And there has been so much that has happened in the last 2 weeks, both on our channel, both personal, both business, everything that we want to do. But last time we were here, I was telling you guys that we were getting ready to pack up the car, pack up the flight, and go up to Nashville to interview my brother and do the whole entire spiel with him of behind the scenes of what it was like to be a country artist. And let me just tell you, it was absolutely amazing. I cannot wait for you guys to see both the behind the scenes portion of it, but also the podcast. He was obviously episode 2 of the Success Playbook with podcast with Corey Hastings. So we filmed all of that. But the behind the scenes was just incredible. To give you guys some idea, me, Lee Gia, and Reek Bentley, our media team, flew up to Nashville literally on the coldest week of the entire probably like year, or I think it's the last 25 years in Nashville. I think we were the only 3 idiots flying from Florida to Nashville on that trip. But we went up there, huge ice storm, all of this stuff. We had about a day and a half to film probably 15 to 16 hours with my brother. And obviously the ice storm delayed it, whatever else it could happen. So we had to fit all filming into one day, which may not seem like that much, but let me go ahead and I'll tell you what we did all day, and you guys will probably be like, wow, they did all that. So first, we woke up obviously very early the next morning. We had a private tour of the Grand Ole Opry, which if you guys like country music, that is the mecca of country music, and that is kind of like the who's who of country music when you talk about being on the Opry stage, being on the Opry floor. My brother, Scotty Hastings, has actually been on that stage 3 times in the last 18 months. So it was kind of funny how it all pulled up because obviously we're going through the artist entrance, and, it's 10 a.m. And all Scotty told me was, we have a private tour. We're going to be able to kind of do whatever we want with filming. Didn't really think much of it. Well, we get to the security gate. The guy comes up and goes, so who are you guys and why are you here? And this guy's like, oh, I'm Scotty Hastings. The so-and-so told us we can come in. We're going to film for YouTube, whatever else. And the security guy goes, well, there's nobody here. So you're literally going to have the entire Opry to yourself. So we're like, okay, whatever. So we park, we go inside. Talk to the next security guy, and he says the exact same thing. He says, there's literally nobody here besides probably 5 or 6 workers, so take as much time as you guys want. You have the whole Opry to yourself till 3 a.m. or till 3 p.m., which was insane. So we literally walked the halls. We went up on stage. We had all this time to kind of walk and talk about what the Opry was, and it was absolutely incredible. I think we spent over an hour just on the Opry stage alone, and what does it mean for country music, and what is it, what the venue means. And so that was kind of like the first half of it. Then we took a small break, and then we went over to his recording studio at Black River Entertainment, where it's a soundstage studio, is one of the most used recording studios in all of Nashville. So Jelly Roll has recorded there, Kelsey Ballerini has recorded there. I mean, all these huge artists, and they have 3 separate recording studios inside of obviously the main building. And so we took a deep dive into each one, and my whole goal with it was to try to get our audience, to try to get you guys who are on the YouTube channel with us to understand what all goes into actually making a song, right? Okay, I can sing, I have a song I want. How do I get it on Spotify? How do I master it? Who's all in this room? What do all these buttons do, right? And so we did a really good job, I think, of detailing that out, of who's all in the room, what does the engineer do, what does the producer do, and kind of what their job and what they do each and every time whenever they're finalizing those artists and those music. And kind of hearing from somebody who has recorded several songs and being able to go through that process, it was just awesome to see and hear his perspective of what it is like to actually record music in Nashville as a country artist, and kind of do almost like a property tour of his studio. So that's kind of how we did the afternoon. And then we did about a 2-hour podcast actually in one of the studios, which went awesome. And then that night we actually filmed on Broadway because what is country music without Broadway in Nashville? So, and I wanted to talk about Broadway because my brother actually sang on Broadway for years, and he would do 3 to 4 days a week on Broadway. And so we wanted to kind of capture that piece of not only his background, but also just country music in general. And so here we are walking Broadway. It's freezing outside. Of course, most of the bars are packed because obviously it's Nashville. And, there's if you guys have never been in Nashville before, on Broadway, every single bar has live music. Some of them have them on every single floor. Some of them has a main artist, whatever it could be. But I really wanted to tap into what that means to be on Broadway and the pressure that you feel and what all goes into it. Because everybody thinks that Broadway, oh, you're probably getting paid all this money, whatever else. No. You get a couple $100 a night and tips. And so I wanted to hear from his perspective, what is it like when there's only 5 people in the bar? What is it like you just sang 4 hours and you made $10? What is it like when there's, flip side, when there's 500 people in here, right? How does that make you different? How's this? And just kind of the mental capacity you have to have where each and every night you're going into these bars, you're singing other people's songs, you're doing all this stuff. And so I wanted to hear from somebody who's been in it. So I'm really excited to release that to you guys. I think we're going to do, I think it's going to come out in 2 weeks. This week, I believe we have we listened to you guys in the chat. We had a week in the life of a CEO. We had a whole week-long, really exciting week from filming podcasts that I was on to filming a recap video to doing some other things, obviously, inside the brokerage. So that's the next video we're going to be releasing. Hopefully, that's going to come out either this week or beginning of next. Then my brother's behind the scenes, and then my podcast with my brother after that. But I just want to tell you guys thank you because we've obviously released episode 1 with Bo Blankenship podcast. A lot of you guys have had great reviews on that. A lot of you guys have obviously spent a lot of time watching it. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And we have some really, really cool things coming. So we'll go ahead and dive into the chat. So I want to say what's up to our Pittsburgh people, Cincinnati, Nashville, Tennessee, Howard, Ohio. Thank you guys obviously for being here. Jacksonville. Thank you guys for being here. So we'll go ahead and dive into some questions. If you guys haven't already, please go ahead and put your questions into the chat. I want to try and get to as many as I possibly can over the next 60 minutes or so. And I know that a lot of you guys have also DM'd me or commented questions either on Instagram or on YouTube. So I have those printed out in front of me. So we will definitely get to those as well. But we'll get getting started. No one wins a championship alone. Who is on your coaching staff, mentors, peers, challenges you trust to review your playbook in the hard truths? Yeah, I mean, you guys have heard me say a lot that, you should strive to never be the smartest person in the room, right? What that means essentially is you should strive to have people around you who make you better. Strive people to have around you who are maybe smarter than you are at a certain topic or a certain genre or whatever it could be. And so we have an amazing team inside of our brokerage. Obviously, we have other managing brokers. We have a marketing team. We have compliance team. We have all these different levels. And so, it's not just a one-person show. And I think that's one of the things we've talked a lot about on this podcast as far as like scaling and entrepreneurship and all of that. And you definitely have to have people around you that you empower to go off and just offload some. Because like I told you guys, the number one mistake I think most entrepreneurs make is they try and do everything, right? They're the marketing, they're the sales, they're the director, they're the compliance, they're the payroll. They do all of these things, and it really just ties up your time. So you have to have kind of like, as this question says, the coaching staff around you to make sure that you have everything that you need and more to go forward. Next question. How do you handle self-doubt? That's a really good question. I mean, I think at the core of it, we're human, right? We're always going to doubt a little bit of what we're trying to accomplish or what we're trying to believe in or whatever else. But the way that I always kind of go back on self-doubt is just the utmost kind of like almost delusional ability to convince myself that I can accomplish something. And obviously, sometimes in life, it doesn't always work out. Sometimes in life, it does, right? But I think if you allow yourself to continue to loathe and self-doubt, you're never going to be able to accomplish anything. So I think everything starts with your mindset. You have to have the mindset to where you can accomplish these things. And obviously, I'm not saying you're going to be able to accomplish in, first year, go out and sell $100 million in real estate. That's not what I'm talking about. I think it all comes down to setting realistic expectations, realistic goals, and what you want to accomplish. And then, yes, there's always going to be doubt and be able to do those. But if you handle the right things and you build your processes through, a lot of that self-doubt hopefully will be replaced with confidence, because you're able to do those things. You're able to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, essentially. But that's a really good question from there. How do you decide on when to continue with an innovative or time to pivot? Well, I think I told you guys before, I think successful people pivot very quickly. They understand maybe this wasn't the best business idea. Maybe this wasn't the best job for me. Let me go ahead and pivot very quickly. I equate it to kind of like an NFL front office, right? Where if the front office drafts a quarterback that we know can't play, the worst thing they can do is just continue to throw him out there year after year after year, trying to say, oh, well, I drafted him high, therefore I have to make it work. Those successful organizations will quickly pivot and go on to something else, right? Same as that thing in business. I think you have to understand when is the end of the road, is the maximum capacity where I can be able to accomplish these things. Is it already past? Is it coming? Whatever's going forward. But you have to pivot in business, right? You're not always going to make the right decision. You're not always going to be surrounded by the people that you want to surround. Not every job is going to be what they made it out to be, right? So I think you have to look down, and once you start to kind of feel inside that human intuition, like, I don't think this is what I thought it was, right? And I think that's when you have to really start to look at, okay, what is my exit strategy? What am I going to pivot to? And really be able to go from there, which is good. But good question. Next question. Who's your go-to play for breaking through and creating forward movement when you're feeling stuck? I mean, I think the biggest thing is your mindset, right? I mean, we're all stuck, right? I mean, I'm sure some of you guys in Cincinnati and Nashville and those other places, I'm sure it's probably 25 degrees, and the last thing you want to do is get up in the morning and go out to work or go and work out first thing in the morning, whatever else. But I think everything stems from mindset. I think once you have that positive mindset and you have that internal motivation, at the end of the day, it's you versus you, right? You have to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the night or beginning of the morning or whatever else and say, hey, I'm proud of you, and we're going to go and do this together. And I think when you start to kind of feel sorry for yourself a little bit or feeling stuck, as this question says, that's when you get into this really bad slippery slope of really like not being able to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So everything stems from mindset though, for sure. Okay, let's go through another one question here. What are some of the unglamorous daily drills that make your big moves possible, seeming easy to execute? Great question. I mean, I think you guys have heard me talk about it a time. I think small daily goals lead to medium goals, which then lead to long-term goals. So, one of the things, and it could be personal, it could be, obviously professionally, but one of the things that's really important to me each and every morning is I cold plunge at least 3 minutes every single morning. That's how I start my day. And it's just, there's a lot of reasons for it, but mentally it just gets me very clear, very motivated, and it kind of is my, okay, now we can start the day moment. So that's obviously very unglamorous, because if you guys have ever been in a cold plunge at 39 degrees for 3 minutes, it is absolutely horrendous. It's great on the body once you're out, but during the moment, it is horrible. But also, I really pride myself on being the first person in the office most days, at least I would say probably 4 days a week, because that time that I'm in the office, because my office is open with my office staff at 9:30. But when I'm in the office between 8:15, 8:30, whatever it may be, that hour that I have together, like when it's just quiet, that's when I get a lot of my work done. And I usually set my schedule up the night before of, okay, you have this meeting in the afternoon. You got to make sure you get this printed off. You got to make sure you answer these emails, these phone calls, whatever else. And so my day is mostly planned 24 to 48 hours in advance. And I'm very, very focused on what do I need to accomplish in that 1 hour that I have alone, so that I can begin to build my day from there. Because, people come in my office every single day. They come in, a 10-minute conversation turns into 25 minutes. 25-minute conversation turns into an hour. Next thing you know, I'm talking to people who I work with and all this stuff, which I want. I want that ability. But I think getting up early and getting in the office is something that really frees my time. And it's a unglamorous daily drill, but it's very important. Next question. What does your personal definition of enough look like? Is it a number, a feeling, or a lifestyle? It's a really good question. I mean, I don't really necessarily have like an internal number of enough. I think for me, what I'm focused on right now is my fulfillment and my happiness, right? And obviously, you want to live, depending on your religion, obviously, you want to live a God-first life, because realistically, that's all you're going to be fulfilled with, not from cars or boats or whatever else it could be. But at the end of the day, you want to take pride and you want to have fulfillment in what you're doing. So as long as I continue to have happiness in my job, as long as I continue to stay motivated and focus on the right things, I don't really know if there's enough button. But at the same time, I also want to have an amazing life, not just a work straight life. You got to have that work-life balance a little bit, which is really, really important as we go forward. Great question, though. What is one thing that you struggle with? What is one thing that you struggled with that would surprise some people? Ooh, that's a good question. I think one of the things that I sometimes struggle with, to be honest, is confidence. And if you guys know me at all, you guys would be like, oh, that's kind of weird. But not necessarily confidence where I'm starting to doubt myself, but kind of, confidence in a way to where it starts to, can you really pull that off? Is this really what you want to accomplish? Confidence in situations more so, not necessarily like, oh, are you going to be a top 5 agent or a top 5 brokerage in the marketplace? Yes, of course we're going to do that. I'm confident in that, but more just the kind of different situations I think every once in a while I struggle with. But at the end of the day, that's where that mindset comes in, right? And having great friends and family and peers you can lean on that kind of bolster you up a little bit, because sometimes, we're human, right? We need that, right? We need good friends. We need good, strong family. We need people in our corner that's going to say, you know what, Corey, you can accomplish this. Oh, you know what, Corey, you can do these things, right? I think that's really important. And so what I will tell you is a lot of the successful people I'm around have a very, very close-knit group that they talk to. Someone told me a long time ago, the more successful you are, the less friends you're going to have. And I think there's a lot of reasons to that. Sometimes we need friends to say, hey, Corey, you're messing up right now, right? You're off on this path and we need to bring you back in, both personal or business, right? But also the same exact time, we need those friends to come back and say, hey, Corey, I see you're down a little bit. Let's go ahead and bring you back up. Let's give you that pep talk. What do you need from me? What can we be doing differently? Walk us through your struggles, right? And I think that's a good friend. Where I think people go wrong, especially, some successful people, is they're surrounded by yes men or yes women, right? Where no matter what they do, it's, yeah, man, yeah, we can do that, or you can do this, or whatever else. And you don't always have those real people next to you. Now, obviously, that's built with time, that's built with trust and all of that. And so that's where I think a lot of the truly successful people in business have probably the least amount of friends, which is very important. Good questions, though. Let's keep them coming in the chat, guys. If you guys have any more, definitely send them our way. Good question here. What business situations do you constantly try and avoid? Good question. I think for me, I try not to become distracted off of what my core business is. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, get into a business or launch a business or whatever else, and they get so caught off. Like they get pitched this idea, then that idea, then this idea, and this idea, and next thing you know, they have 7 businesses, but none of them make sense, or none of them are operated correctly, or you actually lose sight of what your actual core business really is. And so the one thing I try to avoid the most is any distraction that is going to take either time, energy, or effort away from my main business. Now you can have ancillary businesses. Now you can have things that maybe coexist together, but I wouldn't run a real estate brokerage and then an ice cream shop, or I wouldn't run a real estate brokerage and like a daycare. Like that doesn't really make sense, right? But I could have a real estate brokerage and maybe a title company, or I could have a real estate brokerage and a mortgage company, because they go in line. But I think a lot of business owners, especially whenever you're young, you get so caught up in being your own boss and all of these things. You just jump to all these different opportunities and all these different business opportunities. Doesn't always work that way. And one of the most successful people I've ever met in my entire life said, Corey, once you lose sight of your main source of business, you've lost it forever. And so that's always kind of been on the top of my mind. And so that's one of the things that we've always kind of prided ourselves in this business, in our side of our brokerage, is we don't ever try to get distracted by the next best thing or whatever else from there. Good question, though. In terms of sacrifice versus instant gratification, what is the one thing you could do today that your future self 10 years from now would thank you for? Wow. I think the biggest thing, I could just continue to work every single day and continue to build foundation blocks for 10 years from now, for 5 years from now, for even a year from now, right? The 10 year of now, Corey, is relying on this version of myself right now to get me there. Because if I lose sight of who I am today or what we are today, whatever else, then there might not even be a 10-year Corey from now, right? Or a real estate brokerage or whatever we're trying to accomplish. So I think the biggest thing I could do for that guy 10 years from now is not lose focus of who I am today and what we're trying to accomplish today. But that's a really good question. With personal growth, what is a belief you had at the beginning that now you see differently? Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a belief, but I will tell you one of the things that continuously catches me off guard is just how majority of people really only care about themselves, right? And, we could talk at length at this and, I understand why and all this other stuff, but, in business, I really believe that business is personal, right? You want to do business with people that you like. And unfortunately, some people start to show their true colors in business for personal reasons or whatever reason, whatever it could be. And I think people naturally are just selfish in that realm. And it's obviously hard to scale and do those things without those type of people that you want that are loyal to you and all that. And, we've had tremendous loyalty inside of our brokerage, but at the same time, I think one of the things that really kind of catches me off guard that I see differently now compared to when I first started 8 years ago is just how, people really care about themselves, which is a good thing in some instances. But it was a very hard lesson to learn, at 27, 28, 29. It's like, I've done so much for this person. How could they forget that? Or I've done so much for this person. How could they go and do this to me, right? People don't always treat people how they want to be treated. And, I think that's a bad thing in business. So if you guys are listening and you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, if you're a manager, whatever else, I think I've said it on this chat before, but one of the best things you can do and one of the best lessons that you can have in your life is to treat others, treat your employees, treat people that are, lower than you in the totem pole or whatever it may be with absolute respect, because you never know who your boss is going to be one day. And you never know who's going to be at a job that maybe you want, and maybe you need their connection to get that job or whatever else. And so don't ever burn any bridges and definitely treat people with respect in business no matter what. No matter how they're treating you, it does not matter. You should always treat them. Good question, though. What's a non-negotiable win condition for you? The thing that if achieved makes all the success worth it. I mean, I think for me, it's a little bit unique because, I love seeing our brokerage win. So, each and every year we have 5 to 6 core awards that we win from either T360, Mega 1000, which is the 1,000 biggest brokerages in the country out of 88,000 brokerages. Any of the Real Trends Game Changer awards that we've won. Recently, we just had one, and we were one of 24 brokerages, all of 88,000 real estate companies in the country. We were one of 24 to be awarded that.
Situations like awards like that make me very, very happy. Not for me because it's not a me award, but it gives a lot of light and a lot of success where it's due, and that's our team. That's our support staff, our admin staff, our compliance team, people who don't really always get told thank you, right? I mean, I try to do as much as we can, but at the end of the day, I mean, once you kind of win an award like that, it's really, really cool. And it's a testament to our entire company, our entire brokerage. And so for me, I think when we achieve things like that, it's a really big deal. But the good question. Once again, guys, if you guys have any more questions, whatever else, please feel free to put them in the chat. I do have a couple here in front of me that I know some of you guys have sent in, either on, like I said, live, Instagram or email, whatever it could be. What is one of the biggest questions that I got recently was, what is the biggest mistake you see entrepreneurs make in 12 to 24 months of building a business? Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of them, right? I mean, I think in no particular order, I think one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make is they lose sight of who their client is, or maybe they never truly understand who their client is, and maybe they're marketing and they're trying to spend all this money on ad spend and whatever else, but you don't actually have any client retention. You don't actually have any client acquisition because you don't really know who your client is. I think another mistake that I see entrepreneurs make is they're so end game focused that they lose sight of what's right in front of them. They lose sight of the small steps. They lose sight of the medium steps to get to the long step, right? A lot of people I talk to, we'll use a real estate agent for an example, right? Yeah, it's a form of entrepreneurship. When I talk to young agents, the number one thing that they're really focused on is, Corey, I want to make as much money as possible. It's like, I get that, but at the same time, you should be focused on education. You should be focused on, how are you getting clients? You should be focused on, do you actually know what you're doing, right? What is the actual steps of showing a property? Do you have MLS? Do you have all these things? And they get so caught up in, I want to go make money. I want to go make money. I want to go make money, that whenever they're actually positioned to show that property or make money or write an offer or whatever else, they have no idea what they're doing because they didn't focus on the education. They didn't focus on the foundational pieces. So, I think in any industry, those entrepreneurs who are looking to launch their business or whatever else, you have to start the foundation of what your business is all about. You have to master the education level. You have to master the process. You have to master all of those things. And whenever you do that, then naturally you'll start to build the other phases of the house, we'll call it. You can't build the roof without the foundation, right? And that's exactly one of the biggest mistakes I make, or some people have made. Another good question that came in is, how do you know when it's time to scale versus when it's time to tighten systems? So I know we've talked about scaling on this channel a couple different times. Obviously, it depends, right? I mean, there's no one answer for this type of question. I think at the end of the day, what are you scaling for? What is going to be the return on investment? So if you have to have another location, if you have to have another employee, if you have to have whatever it's going to take for you to scale, right? What is the cost going to be and what is the return going to be? So let's say, for example, that you have a chiropractic office, right? And you want to open up another location across the city to, go after more clientele, right? Okay, well, you're going to have a lease, which is going to double your operating expenses. Unless you're going to go back and forth or whatever, you're going to probably have to have someone at the front desk, right? Okay, that's going to increase fees. So what does the math look like for you to truly make this location make sense? So does it actually, does it make sense when it comes down to the financials of, hey, it's going to cost me $50,000 a year and $40,000 a year in rent, but $40,000 a year in salary? Okay, that's $90,000 this is going to cost me, not including insurance, whatever else. We're just using round numbers here. So how many new clients do I have to obtain to offset that cost? That's the math you have to make sense. Because what you don't want is, if you already have clients driving to you from that side of the city, right? You don't want to take them out of one location, put them in another, and now you're doubling your expenses without doubling your income. So I think if you're looking to scale, it's a math problem. Does it make sense? What is your return going to be? What is it going to cost? What is your fixed cost to operate that location? And then how can you return? So depending on, what type of business you have. Is it going to be, a subscription-based model like in a chiropractic? Is it going to be insurance, or whatever it may be? How many clients do you have to get to make sure it makes sense? I think that's the biggest thing. Another question in the chat. You talk about treating employees like you want to be treated. What are some things you do for your employees to recognize their work? What are some tips to help create good culture for your employees? Yeah, good question. So, obviously money talks, right? You obviously want to make sure that they're paid the right way. We do yearly bonuses at Christmas time, obviously, and mid-year bonuses depending on production. But also we do a lot of cultural outings. So, once a month, our brokerage will do either a happy hour, or we'll do for example, this month we're doing a cooking class. There's going to be 40 people inside the office kind of doing a private cooking class here. And our shop staff obviously get first dibs at wanting to come to those things, but we really just want to make sure that they feel a part of the company. Obviously, give them days off whenever they ask, and you have all those basic level things. So we want to create a good work environment for them. So when they come from their house, they're happy to be there. Create a good culture where they have support, they have leadership, but also they have something to work towards. So I sit down with all my employees every 6 months, and I have them fill out, about 15 to 20 questions about, how is the office doing? How are you getting along with everybody? Is there anything privately you want to talk to me about? In what ways do you think you could benefit more from this job? What roles do you want to grow into? What ways do you believe that we could do things better, right? Because if you don't, depending on personality of employees, some of them may not come to you whenever they actually have ideas. And I think a great leader gives them opportunities to do that. And so if you have employees, if you're a manager, if you're an entrepreneur looking to hire, whatever else, I would strongly urge you to, create that safe space for them. So maybe it's a quarterly review, maybe it's a semi-annual review, whatever it could be. But you want to be able to give them the opportunity to come to you because, I've learned this the hard way. That not every person, has my personality. Not every person has, the personality where they're going to come to you and say, hey, Corey, this is bothering me. Some people will just leave, right? Which it's just how they're wired. But I think what I've learned the hard way, and this is from a mistake, is once you give them the opportunity to come to you and create that safe space, you'll be shocked at some of the things people will bring to you in a good way, but also potentially in a bad way, right? But I'm the type of leader and I'm the type of owner-operator where I want to know everything, right? I want to know if something's going on in your office. I want to know if something is bothering you. I want to know all of those things so I can either go and solve it, address it, or potentially get rid of you if you are the problem, right? So, I think creating that safe space is really, really important to keep that company culture together. But I will tell you, the number one thing in culture is it starts at the top. You as the owner, you as the manager, you as the main operator, start everything. So if you are late to work, guess what they're going to think you can do? Be late to work. If you come and you break dress code, guess what they think they can do? Break dress code. Everything starts at the top, from culture to leadership to how you're handling clients to what you're doing every single day. So I will tell you that if you are struggling with either culture or you're having some turnover or whatever else, I would look in the mirror and say, what could I be doing differently? What could I be doing? If I was an employee, would I like me as a boss? Am I being held to a higher standard by myself, right? Those are the things you have to really begin to work on because that is really, really important. And once they see you do it, it would naturally tell them they can do it, right? Good question, though. Yes, I can try to get you the review sheet. If you want to shoot me an email, I can definitely get it for you. What is your advice on how to get rid of a position that doesn't really produce, but the person is well-liked by leadership? Well, I think this is the hard part of being a boss, right? And being an entrepreneur. And I think there's a lot of pivotal moments in a lot of entrepreneurs' careers. And it's actually funny because Bo Blankenship mentioned it on the podcast. He said, one of the things that I've struggled with in the past is firing whenever I knew the person was not a good fit, and how he's kind of had to learn how to do that and how to kind of evolve into being able to fire that person or whatever it may be. But I think at the core of it, it's hard if liked by leadership, great for the culture, great for the company. I guess my question would be, why aren't they producing? And what are they not producing? Is it a position that we can fill easily because it's really not that difficult? Or is it a position that maybe, one or two people can then split the duties of, so we can kind of cut the cost of that salary? So I guess it really just depends on what are they not producing, and maybe they're just not the right fit for the job. If it's a sales job, for example, not everybody's a great salesperson. They can be a great person without actually being a dynamic salesperson. And so that's where it kind of gets tricky. And you as the operator, you as the manager, you as the entrepreneur, you as the owner, you have to make those big decisions. And that is part of being an owner. And sometimes those decisions are not going to be well liked. Some of those decisions are going to be eventually loved, but you have to die on the sword because everybody is looking to you to right the ship. And if you think for whatever reason that person can be replaced because of cost or whatever it may be, then you have to make that decision, right? And, I've made bad decisions before. I've made good decisions before on employees or maybe this marketing program versus that marketing program or whatever. But everything has to make sense, right? We're all here to make money. We're all here to run a business. So whenever you're looking at payroll, whenever you're looking at that P&L statement or whatever it could be, you have to really deep dive into, does this person add value? Does this person add production? Does this person have an ROI, return on investment, right? If the answer is no, 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 they can still be a great person, but just not good at the job, right? And I think you have to kind of keep those separate. And that's where the whole business, it's not personal thing comes in, because sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just, you're just not a good fit for the role we have you in. But if they are a great person and loyal and on time and good attitude and leadership likes them, well, maybe there's something else they can do, right? And I think that's also great leadership, because a great leader, in my opinion, steps into a room with 10 different people and can motivate 10 different people 10 different ways. But also you can find out what people are good at and also probably what their strengths and weaknesses are. So I know it's a tough question, and I know that it's probably a tough situation, but I would probably try to see what can we replace, what could this person be doing differently, either another job, different role, whatever it could be. Because I will say, hard work is hard to find. Loyalty is very hard to find today. And so if they have a lot of the right qualities, then you may be able to kind of finesse them and put them in a different situation, which it may be beneficial for all of you, right? But good question, though. Next question. What's one thing you learned from the interview with Bo? Anything surprising? Yeah, I think I learned a lot. So, obviously, I've known Bo really well for years. Him and I came into college actually in the same recruiting class. I met him when I was 18 years old. And so over the past 10, 12 years, him and I have been really close, almost talk on the phone every single day. So I know him really well. But being on the podcast, it was fascinating to hear, how strong he is in his faith and how strong he is in the belief of what he's doing and Jesus and being able to put God first in his life. Because, listen, this guy's got everything and more. He's got a private jet. He's got multiple houses. He's got a beautiful family. He's got all of these things. And I even asked him the question, Bo, if all of this went away, what do you want people to say about you or to remember you by? And the first thing he said was, none of this means anything, because I would want people to know that I lived a God-first life. And I thought that was fascinating. And being able to hear his perspective on his faith, being able to hear his perspective on what he believes, on why he's successful, but also how he describes and defines success, for me was very surprising. Because, I don't know about you guys, but if I had a private jet, I'd probably think I'm pretty successful, right? And I'm sure you guys are probably too, and all of those things. And for him, none of those things matter to him. Now, obviously, I'm sure that whenever he's in the moment, he probably loves flying private compared to going commercial. But at the same time, it's not where he finds fulfillment. And I think that's something that I know I'm definitely working on. I know a lot of my friends and people who I talk to are definitely working on, and really beginning to try to not be fulfilled by the material things, but be fulfilled by the people that you love and spending time together and all of that. But I will say on a business side, the one thing I was really surprised with Bo, well, I shouldn't say that surprised because I knew it, but hearing him say it kind of put everything into light, was how strict he is on his time. So he's booked out anywhere between 48 and 72 hours in advance. So obviously, emergency, whatever else, but he is so passionate and protective of his time. So if it can take 5 minutes on the phone, then he will give you 5 minutes. If it's going to take a 30-second phone call, you got 30 seconds. Not 35 seconds, 30 seconds. And he is very diligent on his time, and he is very strict on his time. And I think it's because he has so many people pulling him in so many different ways that if he gives this person an hour and this person a half hour and this person this and this person that, next thing he's going to blink, and it's 4 hours gone doing nothing, right? And so if you want his time, you can schedule it, you can have it, but it's what you say it is. And it was pretty fascinating to hear and spend time with him, both behind the scenes, but also on the podcast, and just kind of hear him talk about how he schedules that out, how he has, the assistant that handles a lot of his stuff, the broker who handles a lot of his stuff, his team members who handles a lot of his stuff, and being able to kind of hear, somebody who closed $340 million in production last year talk about what does he think is important, what is this, what is that, and just kind of talk about that. So that's a really good question from there. Another good question that came in via email was, what separates a good operator from a good leader? And I think this is a really good question. I definitely wanted to get to today because not every operator, first and foremost, is a good operator, and not every good operator is a good leader. But I will say that if you are a good operator, typically you can naturally become a good leader. Because if you are a good operator, you are then going to be a point in time in your life or in your job's life or career or whatever else where you are then going to sit there and say, I cannot do all this alone, right? Now, bad operators will just continuously do what they believe is best, and they're never going to hire, they're never going to ask for help, they're going to do all these things, but that also is what makes them a bad operator, right? If you are a good operator, you are naturally going to then say, hey, I need more help, right? And then that operator should be able to learn how to equip people and put them in the right position for them to have success. And I think that's where a great leader comes in. Leadership is a skill, and like any skill, you can learn it if you want to, right? Being a good operator, in my opinion, is actually the harder thing to master than a good leader, because being a good operator in whatever industry you're in could be so different from month to month, to year, depending on inventory issues, comparing to tariffs, compared to client acquisition. I mean, there's so many things that can dictate what a good operator is. But I think a great leader is something you can learn. So I think what separates a good operator from a good leader is the ability to say, I need help. I'm going to equip this person to have more success and be able to put them in the right role to be able to have that. Who are you seeking as your next guest after your brother on my podcast? So right now we are trying to work out schedules with Thad Wong, who is the Christie's CEO, Christie's International Real Estate CEO. He's got an amazing story from how he founded At Properties. He was a young guy who believed in technology years and years ago, and then he built this brokerage that became a huge powerhouse around the country. Then he bought, him and his company purchased Christie's International Real Estate. And then obviously now with the landscape of real estate, Compass now purchased Christie's International Real Estate. So I want to get his story. We have dates in March that we're trying to go back and forth with. But also I think it'd be a great behind the scenes. I want to go and I want to see the Christie's headquarters in Chicago and take you guys with us. Maybe go see some real estate in Chicago, all of that. So we're in the process of trying to work that through. Hopefully we'll have something kind of finalized over the next couple of weeks as we kind of get into late February, beginning of March, but we are working on it. And that's a great segue. So if you guys have anybody that you guys believe would be great on the podcast, if they're whatever industry they're in, whatever genre, however they're successful, I would love to hear from you guys. I would love to possibly reach out to them because we are looking for people that you guys want to hear, you guys want to see, industries that you guys want to hear about. And I don't always want to be a real estate show, but there's a lot of layers to real estate when it comes to business development, different things, how you scale companies. And so we are going to obviously do the best we can there. And thanks from Anderson, Ohio. Good tapping in. I appreciate you being here. We have about 10 minutes or so left. If you guys have any more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. But I want to go ahead and go some more questions that some of you guys have sent in. How do you hold people accountable without killing morale? And I think this is where that great leader comes in, right? Because a great leader isn't always going to do what's popular. The great leader isn't always going to do what's easy, right? So you have to hold people accountable because if you, like I told you guys before, it starts at the top, and the standard is the standard, right? That's the famous Mike Tomlin saying, right? And so if the standard is the standard and you are the one embodying that standard, well, then everybody around you needs to hold it as well. And you as the leader, the entrepreneur, the owner, the whatever it could be, manager, it is your job to make sure that each and every one of your employees or your people below you on the totem pole or whatever else is up to that standard. And so sometimes you kind of have to be, a little bit of an a-hole, not in a mean way, but in a way to say, hey, that's not the way we do things here. I understand this is where you came from, but here we do things X, Y, and Z. I understand that you're 10 minutes late, but we're not going to do it again because here we have this, right? And being able to really keep up that standard, which will naturally keep up morale because people want to be around other successful people. And I can tell you, the number one mistake that you can make as an entrepreneur, a manager, an owner of a company is, let's say you have 5 employees, right? If you have 5 employees and one of them is dicking off and late every day and not working hard, whatever else, trust me, those other 4 employees you have are noticing it. They're going to notice how you handle it, and they're going to notice what they can get away with. So if you do not nip it right there, you are going to have a huge slippery slope on your hands that you do not want. But I can tell you that if you nip it right away, then you will have the respect of those other 4 employees because they are looking to you to say, hey, this isn't right. You're the boss. Make sure that they know, right? It's not their job to police them. It's your job as the owner. So that's a really, really good question, I think, that I definitely wanted to get to tonight. Any advice on hiring, recruiting top performers? Yeah, I think the big thing is you have to obviously start, with the recruiting systems, right? So, there's so many job places out there with Indeed and all these other ones you can have. You can run sponsored ads to make sure that you have everything you need to try to get the right people in the right place. Obviously with the rise of AI, you can build a whole entire thing on Indeed in 5 minutes. You can put out there for the job description that you're looking at. You can look at other things inside your market of what salaries are out there, whatever else. But I think at the core ingredient, right, that's the easy stuff. The core ingredient is if you're looking for somebody who's an absolute savage, right, recruiting top performers, it's all personality. And you have to be able to interview them, ask the right questions, find out their background, find out what motivates them, and what type of personality that they're going to need kind of guarded by, right? I think about top performers as somebody who's at the bowling alley who has never bowled before, but if they put the garters up, they're a 300 bowler, right? No garters, they're going in the gutters all day long, right? But a top performer sometimes just needs a little bit of guidance, just a little bit of push from your end, and they're going to go out and do it. Because in my opinion, I think if you're a great, top performers just naturally have something inside of them, right? Or maybe it's college athletics, or maybe they're just ultra competitive because they were a younger brother, or older sister, younger sister, whatever it could be. But you want to find out what really motivates them, because once you find a top performer that you know what motivates them, that person is going to be driven by that success. And so my advice to you would be, number one, start with the right channels. With Indeed, it's a great one. We've hired a ton off Indeed, sponsored ads, all that stuff. And then the interview process, you have to ask them really pointed questions. Did they ever play? You ever play sports? Right. Tell me something that you overcame in your life and how you overcame it. Right. Or the biggest obstacle. What is something in life that they're motivated by, right? And it's not always I'm motivated by money, because money sometimes isn't always the best motivator, but you really want to find out what their personality is. And I'm a big believer in the DISC test, DISC. And so if you are looking for top performers, I would strongly urge you that when your interview process, you have these people take those tests, because you're going to see right away how they process whenever they're stressed. You're going to see what motivates them, how they handle objections, how they do all these things. And you could do those DISC tests online for like $150 or whatever it is. And so I would strongly urge you that either step 1 or step 2 in the interview process, once you've kind of gone through those entry-level questions, that you really begin to find out who their personality is. Because if they're a really high D, and, sometimes that is not always the best thing, right? And just like if they're a really high I, not always the best when it comes to sales. So you kind of want that ability to know what you're getting yourself into, and kind of who you're going to be equipped as a top performer. So keep that in mind as we go through there. I hope that was a good answer for you. And I think we got one more question here. There was one that I wanted to get to. What does success look like beyond money once you've been in the business for a while? And I think this is a really good one that I wanted to end on. So I'm glad we had time tonight. And I think as you become more successful, right? I think your definition of success has to continue to evolve. Like, I know for me, for example, my definition of success changes week to week, month to month, year to year. And when I was 27, when I opened this company, I would have never imagined that we would be here today doing what we've been able to accomplish. But if I didn't continue to gauge and push that success meter and what the definition of success means, then maybe we probably not have been here. So I would strongly urge you guys that once a quarter, twice a year, whatever it may be, really ask yourself if accomplishing what in 2026 means that I am successful, or success is defined as me accomplishing what in quarter 1. And I think it can't be about the money, just like the question says, because if you're so caught up in the money of like, oh, I want to make $100,000 or whatever else, okay, you made it. Now what, right? And it can't be about sales either, because once you get to sale, you've made him. Now what? You have to begin to evolve what that definition looks like. And I think that's where you continuously strive for more success. Because I know I've seen it. I've said it on this platform quite a few times where, I think success does 2 things to you. I think number 1, it makes you extremely complacent because you've accomplished what you've sought out for. Therefore, I can take my foot off the gas and I'm good. I'm whatever else, right? That is the worst that you can do in your life, in my opinion. And number 2, you can be obsessed with the feeling of success. Therefore, you strive for more success. And that's where I think the really successful people, their mindset. Because a lot of you guys are going to be able to accomplish your goals this year. A lot of you guys are going to be able to accomplish what you set out to accomplish. Now what? Now what are you going to do, right? What does that definition continue to evolve and mean? Especially if you're a young entrepreneur or if you're somebody who's looking to scale. If you're looking to scale, your definition of success, it means completely different things than whenever you first opened. And I think you have to understand that. You have to put yourself in the situation of, okay, what am I trying to accomplish? How am I going to get there? And what is the process to do that? And I think once you do those things, you're naturally going to build your definition of what success means. So I think that's a great way to end tonight. Thank you guys so much for being here on episode 5 of the Success Playbook Live. We have so many amazing things coming on the channel. If you have not subscribed yet, please go ahead and push that subscribe button. And thank you guys so much for being here. We'll see you guys next Tuesday.